The financial world, investments, is a very complex exercise involving us gathering hundreds, if not thousands, of data points, giving weight to each one of those data points, understanding those data points, and then connecting them with all the other data points that we can come up with what we call an overall belief, right? A narrative. Like the narrative today is stagflation. Powell came out the other day and said, I don't believe in stag and I don't believe in inflation. So, but that's the narrative given all the data points that are out there, okay? So that's what we want to look at. And it would be great if our financial world was all lined up and symmetrical and totally connected and no loose ends out there and based on a nice solid foundation so that we can make our decisions on what we think is going on in the market. Unfortunately, after financial crises, from all the different facilities that we have, from all the different laws that we pass, all the different tax laws that we pass, over time, our system gets more and more and more complex, more and more interconnected. And with the leverage that is now used in the world, well, we kind of look like this, unfortunately. So when we start getting small data points, like one data point, how do we read through? How do we follow through and understand, is this actually important or not? I saw this the other day on the money market funds. And what was interesting about this is the article was that we're at all-time high on money market funds, and this is dry powder sitting on the sidelines, and they were extrapolating that they're waiting for the Fed to cut rates, and then people will pile into the market, supporting it or driving it higher. But like we said, our system is far more complex than just, oh, I have a money market fund. So here's what a money market fund is made up of. And by the way, the orange are repos, okay? So repos are not buying treasuries. They are considered safe, but they're repos. So the first thing I want to say is the money in the money market funds are not just sitting there. They're being used. In this case, it's being used through the repo system. You can read about the repos here. Basically, they're less than 397 days. The collateral on one side must be U.S. government securities or equivalents, all right? So that could be CMBS, right? Mortgages that the government holds. And there must be a diversification or diversification rules around this. So we said the treasuries are on one side of the trade. On the other side of the trade are pre-vetted banks and dealers, i.e. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. Do you want me to name the rest of the G-SIBs, right? There's 8 of them in America. They're the other 8. There's 8 that could be used as a counterparty. So we're saying those banks who never go bankrupt, except during the great financial crisis, are the other side of the trade. But that increases the yield to the money market fund. And the Fed has stepped in as a backstop in the past with the reverse repo facility, the RRP, which if you follow this channel for the last 3 years, we've talked about this extensively. And here they say right off the top is what are the risks and if a major dealer fails. If JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, State Street, they go belly up, this is what goes on. And the other thing is collateral rehypothecation. If you remember when we did the London video, all the firms are connected with legal entities in London. So they transfer their securities from the US, wherever, right? Any country, and give them to London because there you can rehypothecate. In other words, over here in America, you can margin something once, 50%. You can margin it 50%. Over in London, you can lend the same 100 shares to short as many times as you want. They call it hyperhypothecation, all right? So this is also a risk involved with our money market funds. And of course, another one, if interest rates rise too fast, the repo yields may lag behind. Interest rates change every day, and if your paper is less than 397 days, a year or something, you have to wait before you can do it again. So the first lesson is money market funds aren't ready cash. Let's go wild in the stock market when we want to jump in, right? Because the money market fund is actually not designed that way, all right? And the $7 trillion historical high is like, listen, this is great support for the stock market. Is it? When you put the money market funds to the total US equity market, and you go back here about 30 years, you can see where we are. Is the money market funds a great support for the stock market? Or is it not? This is what you have to make up your mind on. So again, think of what I'm trying to talk about today. Yes, we have $7.2 trillion in the money market fund. The money market funds have issues on their own that could be affected in a great financial crisis. And then also, when you look at the value of the money market funds versus the stock market, it's literally, I would say, very close to an all-time low, all right? So when we make and say, and analysts say, hey, we think this is going to happen, all right? Given we have this money over here in the money market funds, this is what's going to happen. Well, it doesn't actually work that way. So to finish our thoughts today, let's go back to the great financial crisis, because what was the kickoff? I mean, what was the day that we knew was when the day that the reserve fund, the first and largest money market fund in America, had to break the buck. In other words, the securities, the repos, the treasuries, or the commercial paper inside the money market fund declined in value so much that they were forced to say that we have to break the buck, which in the end just blew up the whole reserve fund. Notice you don't hear about it anymore. There is no reserve money market fund. It was the largest money market fund. And other issues involved with there also hurt all our banks because it was all our bank paper. Literally from the day that the reserve fund said they're going to break the buck, all our banks were essentially bankrupt. And so the very first action by the Federal Reserve at the beginning of the financial crisis was they guaranteed all the money market funds for 2 years, okay? That's what actually happened. That's what allowed us to continue to work through until we came up with hold to maturity portfolios and FASB 157. So my point here is what appears on the surface to be something that's highly supportive of the stock market may or may not be. That's the decision that you have to make. All I'm encouraging everyone to do is to do your work. Understand what the plumbing of the financial system looks like so that you can make decisions that will help you make money over a long period of time. So, what do you think? Like and follow and tell me in the comments. And thank you for listening.